Time now for Hot Picks. We're going to focus in on the leisure sector. Despite fears of a global economic slowdown, which many people fear could weigh in a big way on leisure travel, our next guest sees opportunity in his three stock picks. Joining us is Dan Crowley, portfolio manager at Nightview Capital. Dan, thanks a lot for joining us. Let's deal with that macro question. First of all, I'm sure you know, Delta Airlines has pulled its guidance today and has said that the reason for that is the global trade uncertainty, which it sees dampening travel demand. You seem to take a more confident view of the macro environment and demand for travel and leisure. Explain.
Yeah, I think obviously in the short term, there's a massive amount of uncertainty here, and some damage has been done, in the next 3 to 6 months. We do think that the most likely outcome here is a resolution. And a lot of that uncertainty has begun to start being priced in, obviously not all of it. If the full impact of the tariffs is incorporated, I think equities would be lower. But, I think for longer term investors, outside shocks in macro have never been the most material force for returns over any extended period of time. So I think, selectively and opportunistically looking at acquiring cash flow producing assets, as this unfolds, there's opportunity.
Okay, let's go to your first pick, Wynn, the casino operator company. Why do you like that stock?
Yeah, they're certainly no stranger to outside shocks. They weathered the COVID storm. They have a significant Macau presence. We think that the new market in the UAE has first mover advantage in an attractive and currently underserved region. They're globally diversified with strong assets throughout. And again, even with all this uncertainty and the near term being murky, we think that, acquiring strong cash flow producing assets at attractive prices has historically been the best strategy. And trying to trade around it, is a difficult proposition. And so, when these things kind of come into our range that we feel on a 3 to 5 year lens or even 2 to 3 year lens, that these opportunities don't always come up. So we think it's a well-diversified global company. And we think ultimately, even with all this noise, that the global market for gaming and entertainment will grow, over any extended period of time. So just trying to keep our head through the storm here and look for quality assets at reasonable prices. Okay.
Number 2, Airbnb, ticker symbol ABNB on the NASDAQ, also owned, as all three of these stocks are, in your fund.
Yeah, again, impressive financial management. The last time, which, I wish was kind of more in the past, that they went through an extreme shock was also with COVID. They exited it in way stronger position. It's down significantly since the IPO. Their financial statements have improved dramatically, the balance sheet, income statement, and most specifically the cash flow statement. And ultimately, we think that platform models, tend to unlock additional revenue streams that the market doesn't, fully anticipate. So again, we view it as a strong company. Again, it faces short-term headwinds, but, the market is not unaware of that. I think a week ago, if this wouldn't be priced in, but, we're starting to see, I think, some of this near-term uncertainty priced in. And there is a potential for a resolution, but more importantly, we view it as a solid company over the longer term.
How important is international travel to Airbnb? In other words, to what degree does Airbnb's business come from people who are traveling out of their own country to another country? And to what degree does it depend on people, for instance, traveling within the United States or within the UK?
Yeah, it's kind of a mixed bag internationally. North America is obviously the most important market, but international has been growing. And, there is a factor, obviously on all that. But again, to what extent is that information known? To what extent could we see some sort of resolution? And again, do we view that international travel will continue, over an extended period of time? Yeah, we do.
Okay, let's move on to number 3, also owned in your fund, Las Vegas Sands. Back we go to the casino sector, LVS in New York.
Yeah, no stranger to, macro shocks and difficulties. They're heavily focused in Macau, in Asia gaming specifically, and Singapore. And the Singapore market has done phenomenally with Marina Bay Sands, and the Macau market has struggled mightily. Off of COVID, gross gaming revenue is still struggling to kind of get back to those 2019 levels. But again, Macau has been a gambling center for hundreds of years, and I'm obviously aware of the short-term macro, and it's a tough day to talk about fundamentals and actual businesses. But we view Macau as a growing market. We think that the global wealth in Asia will continue to climb, and that these places will be premier destinations. So again, it's obviously we're aware of the difficulties in the macro environment, but we view that as an opportunity selectively, and at reasonable position levels to pick up attractive assets.
Dan, thank you very much for joining us. There are Dan's picks in the sector as, again, Wynn, Airbnb, and Las Vegas Sands. Dan Crowley is a portfolio manager at Nightview Capital. Thanks, Dan.